Good afternoon. Kelly here with your positive news for this week. And this week I want to talk to you about two things: how kids should interact with dogs and how kids shouldn't interact with dogs. And these are two things that are going to be very, very important with you, especially since we have so many new therapists who have maybe not worked with the therapy dogs before. And even though you have dogs of your own, when it comes to teaching kids about having good behaviors with dogs, these things are really, really valuable. So first, let's talk a little bit about how kids should not interact with the dogs. And by the way, I will send you copies of these so that you have access to them if you'd like to share them with your kids. So rule number one is, just like with people, if somebody was sitting there eating a sandwich, you're not going to walk over and grab their sandwich and take a bite out of it, right? So avoid bothering dogs when they're eating too. So that's a very good habit for them to get into so that they don't get into trouble with their own dogs at home. Avoid stealing toys. Just like you wouldn't make friends with a new kid by walking over and grabbing the toy away from them, you don't make friends with a dog by walking over and taking their toy away from them or stealing a bone away from them. Those are considered rude behaviors and should be avoided. Putting your face right up. Some of the kids might do this actually with a parent, like they want their parents' attention and the parents, busy, reading a paper or working on their iPad or whatever, and the kid comes up and puts their face right in their face, and then their parents are like, "Oh my gosh, leave me alone." Well, same thing with the dog. You're not going to walk up and put your face right into the dog's face, because that would be considered rude and you might get snapped at. Okay? Now, another big thing is avoiding grabbing tails and ears. I know many of us have dogs, and some of our personal dogs have no problem with that whatsoever, but it's can be dangerous with a dog that you don't know. So avoiding grabbing tails and ears would be very similar to a human, of avoiding pestering people, like people who, walking up to their sister and, "I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not," but it's, oh, right? Or, or pulling a pigtail or poking, those kinds of things. Very similar to pulling a tail or an ear. Avoiding climbing on or trampling your friends and your therapy dog. Now, it's one thing if you've created a relationship with your therapy dog where you can cuddle up to them or lie your head on them, but again, you build those kinds of relationships. You don't assume that they're there right from the get-go. And also avoiding hugging. Hugging can be considered very disturbing to dogs, whether they're a therapy dog or not. Now, many of our therapy dogs are fine with it, and some of them are not. And so you don't just assume that they're going to be okay with it. You get permission. You build the relationship to the point where that's okay. And avoiding hollering and shouting is just the same as, like if your dad's sitting there working on the computer on something, you're not going to run up and be like, "Dad, Dad, Dad," right? Because what's Dad going to be like? "Oh my gosh, what's wrong with you?" You don't run up to a dog hollering and screaming, because the dog is going to be like, "Roof, roof, roof," right? Same thing. So these are really good tools for you to be able to use to help you teach the kids how all these behaviors that they're learning with the dogs they are very similar to behaviors that they want to practice with people. And how they should interact is very simple. Be polite and kind. Play appropriately. And walk and run with a dog like in a nice, controlled manner. Being playful, being loving, being kind, those are always acceptable behaviors with our friends and with our animals. So I will send you guys copies of these. I hope that this is very helpful. And if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, please let me know. I'm here to help. Thanks so much and have a great day.